What's going on, guys, and thanks again for being here. Today I'm reviewing another awesome, interesting piece of gear that GVM just released. This is the GVM ST300R. As a matter of fact, I reviewed the ST100R, which is the same exact design here, it's just a different body. But actually everybody was waiting for 300 watt light, and this is exactly what this does, because the other light was already awesome. And now imagine 300 watts of RGB on one side and 300 watts or CCT on the other one. So you actually can have both in the same light without actually having to set up another fixture here. So I'm gonna tell you everything about this light from top to bottom, A to Z, so don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. And just a disclaimer, GVM sent me this light for me to test it out, and all my words and opinions, they are my own. I don't get paid to say anything here, and this video is not sponsored by GVM. So the GVM ST100R, which is already an awesome light, the only thing that was missing is for them to make a 300 watt light, and in no time they actually released the 300 watt here, which is gonna make a lot of people happy, because how many COB lights that you see that has an RGB, especially at 300 watts, especially under $1,000. I think it's actually a very nice price for what this light does here. So here's the actual case that this comes with. As you can see, it's a very nice and elegant material, very similar to what Godox is doing with their VL series lights. And inside the case, it comes with everything, all kinds of foams here to protect everything. So here's the light, everything's separate. The power cord is actually can go here, so it doesn't have any possibility of scratching the light. So here's the actual reflector. And this little diffuser thing, I actually would treat this as a cap only, not as diffuser, even though they say it's a diffuser, but I'm not gonna use as the diffuser. The actual power cord. Another cool thing is because this Velcro here, when you use it like this, it definitely prevents this cable from moving around here and accidentally touching the light, because this can easily scratch the light, right? So it's actually secured in here with the Velcro itself, which is cool. And the RGB is one side, CCT on the other one. I love this feature here. And here's one of my favorite pieces, the super heavy duty V-mount thing that they provide here. This is not going anywhere, and it's very similar to a Manfrotto super clamp. And finally, the ballast. Absolutely gorgeous. Very nice to look at. And a little bit of the technical specs here. This is a 300 watt light, which means you're getting the RGB, the whole 300 watts shooting this way, and on CCT 300 watts shooting that way. It has a CRI of 97 plus, and the color temperature on CCT ranges from 2700 degrees Kelvin all the way to 7500 degrees Kelvin, which is a plus instead of having the regular 5600 degrees Kelvin output on the cooler side of the light. And with the reflector installed at 1 meter away, it has a lumens of 65,000, and the voltage operates in anywhere you are, whatever country they are, India, Brazil, Argentina, United States. As soon as you plug this light to the outlet, it's going to be detecting the proper voltage for the ballast to work properly. But one thing that I was actually very shocked as I was actually browsing the Amazon specifications there, at the very bottom of the products listing there, because most lights that GVM makes, as far as I know, they are made in China. This one here is not made in China, it's made in Switzerland. Check that out. So if you're new to this channel, the first thing that I'll actually start with the video at the very beginning is going straight to the point with the thing that you guys want to know first of all, and to get the thing out of the way, let's talk about the fan noise here. So this is a 300 watt light, and of course you need some fans to cool things off here, because that's a lot of power, right? But as you can see or hear, the fan is actually very audible, especially with the microphone, which is a condenser super cardioid microphone, 11 inches from my mouth, pointing directly at me and at this light here. So right now you're gonna hear this type of noise. I'm going to be giving you guys here 10 seconds of silence so you guys can see what the situation looks like with the microphone pointing directly at the light. So that should be about 10 seconds. So this is what it sounds like. But usually you're going to be doing an interview with the light at least 5 feet away, in which the softbox also takes some room. So especially if you use a directional microphone instead of the 360 pickup with the omnidirectional microphone, you're going to actually have ways to not capture the sound of this fan here with a microphone, especially if you know what you're doing as far as how to properly point the microphone at the right source, which is the subject right here, and the light in the back here. Shouldn't be really having a lot of problems. And most of the videos that I record here, even with the paid interview, even if this light is a little bit noisy, the one thing that I don't like doing is to actually tweak the sound in post-production using even advanced software such as Isotope, RX8 or RX9. Some way or somehow you will always going to be degrading the quality of the audio. But this ballast here, they actually have some choices for fan speed and noise. So you can actually have the ballast set to auto or quiet or high. So this is actually the quiet, and I will show you the high right now. So this is actually useful when you actually turn the light down to 0% because the fans will still be running as long as you have the power switch on, which is a great thing to actually help to expedite the cooling of the light, which is a feature that I actually like. So one thing that I actually gotta suggest to GVM to do, just like Godox does, is the ability to actually have the option to completely kill the fan and limiting this light to, I don't know, 40%, 50% or 30%, whatever it's allowed to have a 300 watt blasting without any fan. This is something that they actually should take in consideration in releasing a software here. So you can actually have no fan. In most cases, like with the 300 watt light, especially you guys like to shoot f2.8, f1.4 and such, you're not gonna need not even 5% of this light to actually have a decent interview here. So that shouldn't be a problem. So actually kill the fan completely, or when you actually use a whole 300 watt light, which probably means that the light is at a greater distance and the fan noise shouldn't even matter. You follow what I'm saying here? So the only thing that's missing here is just the option to completely kill the fan and to use like 20-30% of the light. That should be plenty of power here. Unless, of course, again, you're lighting a whole room, and again, these lights are going to be very far away if you're using this thing with a set all the way to 300 watts. Make sense? So I'm going to start with the top of the light here, starting with the reflector. As you can see, it's the same similar design to what Godox is making, and also Aperture. This is a nice and reflective surface here, which is actually a little tougher material, but it doesn't mean you can't bend. As a matter of fact, this one here came slightly bent, very tiny little damage. I could easily, just like a car, a body shop or something, I could actually press here and I cannot even tell where the dent was. Look at this. Where's the dent at? I just put my thumb here and it was a very little damage, so which is pretty cool. Now actually when you install this back here, the one thing that I really like to see is because there's no rattling whatsoever. This thing is gonna stay here and it doesn't sound like this here. You know, this is actually a great feature. It also looks like GVM is liking a lot this type of design here. This is probably what's going to be for many lights they're going to release, even though the SD300R is actually a black light and entirely made of metal, while this body here is almost entirely made of plastic, except the top here, which is made of metal. And of course I love lights that are made of metal. You know, it definitely adds that touch of robustness of the light, but sometimes I think a little plastic is good because unfortunately I'm actually hired to shoot a lot of things on the cold outside, and sometimes I can't even wear gloves, especially when I have to actually fine-tune the light here. The gloves gonna get in the way. So unless you're the type of guy that likes to throw your gear in the bag whatever way it is and then let the light bang around all the equipment, maybe you will manage to somehow break this light, even though it's made of ABS plastic, which is a very hard material. And the plastic for me here is not going to be a big deal because plus this thing comes with a case and they should protect for most situations, except, you know, flying on the airplane. Good luck checking that bag in, but this is not what the bag is for. But to most of us, especially when you're paying close to $900 for this light, I don't think you're gonna be treating this light like, you know, you treat a $50 little light, right? So I guess the plastic here should be okay. And again, the advantage that you're gonna be more comfortable operating this light in the cold. And because some GVM COB lights, they actually made of plastic here on the bottom, but this particular light here, don't worry about it, because from the yoke all the way to the mounting spigot thing for the 5/8 to put on your light stand, everything here is made of metal. The only plastic here is the actual enclosure itself, and the top plate is actually made of metal. And one thing that I'm starting to notice here, the actual teeth here that holds the light and modifiers and everything, every single light they actually release, they're actually making the teeth even thinner and smaller, which allows you to actually very precisely set the softbox in whatever position, because the larger teeth, what happens is every time you actually make a change here, the light is either gonna go this much or this much here or this much there, right? This particular light here, you can actually do like, you know, I don't know, a 1/4 inch here, you lock it down, or another 1/4 inch, you lock it down, and a 1/4 inch, you lock it down. So this is actually awesome. So they're actually making these lights better and better. Just the thing again, you know, they should actually make the option here, have the option to have the fan on, fan off completely. You know, it's one of those details that they are gonna catch up pretty soon. But you know, this is one of the little things that they actually should be improving. But so far, it looks like they're really actually doing a good job here. I can't get over how cool this thing is. Right now, if you want to blast some CCT, there it is right there. And if you want to blast some RGB, there you go. It's that simple. You switch a softbox here or vice versa. You can put a snoot here, diffuser, whatever it is they want to do. Pretty cool. One thing that I actually really like to see with what GVM is doing with this light here is because even though it's a 300 watt light, sometimes you will need the very minimum amount of power here or brightness, such as 1% for example. So you can go very gentle here. If I point this at my hand, I'm not even overexposing the hand, and the hand is actually, I don't know, 2 inches actually right here. I'm not even overexposed the hand, so which is pretty good, because sometimes we do time lapse or something too close that you have to shoot, or if you have to shoot something incredibly high ISO. So the very little brightness here can be actually very useful. If I slightly squint my eye, I can actually look straight at this beam here without actually damaging my eye. I don't even see the LED spots on my eye right now here when I'm looking at this monitor. And you can make this even more dim as soon as you install a softbox here. This light is going to be pretty much like, you know, you probably have to adjust for another 3, 4, 5% here. So I actually appreciate the range here. You can actually almost look straight at the LED diodes here to a ridiculous full blast of 300 watts here, which is pretty nice. So I'm really enjoying this here, the fact that you can actually have this much lighting control here, as you can see. Now I'm going to be actually killing all the lights here, then I'm going to show you what this is going to look like. Alright, so right now it's just me, the light, and the fan. And I'm going to be actually pointing this right in my face here. I'm actually shooting with the Canon C200 Mark II. The f-stop is actually 1.4 because this is a rather dark lens. It's a Canon 24-105, and the ISO is 850, and the shutter is 1/90th of a second. And at these settings, you actually get this type of exposure here. And I'm about, I would say, 7-8 inches away from the light, and it looks like this here. You can barely see my face. And again, this is a 300 watt with this amount of light control here as far as brightness goes. And not only this light allows you to do 1%, you can actually do in sets of 1/10 of a percent. So right now I'm at 1%, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, you know, all the way to like, you know, 2% and such. So right now I have this light set to 1.8%. It looks like this here. So 2% or around 3%. So just to give an idea how low this light can go, which is awesome. I almost forgot to mention here, you're looking at this GVM softbox, which is not part of what's included with this light. You know, you get the light, the reflector, the ballast, and the necessary power cords, and the V-mount here, and the case. But the softbox is going to be actually a additional purchase. Unless, of course, they come up with the light as a kit that comes with the softbox and maybe another stand. I don't know what kind of stands they'll provide as a kit. They probably will actually release even a heavier duty stands different to what I usually see that come with the GVM kit. Who knows? They might actually include the stand that's actually more robust. Now let's talk about this ballast here. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a big beefy ballast here. The whole look, the design here, I really like this ballast. You know, take a look at this thing here. You show up with this thing on a set here. It looks expensive, and actually it is a little bit because this light is almost $1,000, right? Like $900 or something. The GVM ST300R, it comes with the same heavy-duty V-mount mount here, similar to a Manfrotto Super Clamp. But the ST300R, I actually like the connection better. It actually feels safer, and you hear the satisfying clicking noise. I can't say that I actually have the same experience with this particular mount here, even though everything is metal, including the mount, including the V-mount little plate on the back of this ballast here. But one thing that you have to be careful with, you have to absolutely make sure that you hear that click, otherwise this ballast is going to be flying out of here accidentally. So I'm going to give you a little tip here how to not make that happen. Actually, before I even get to that point here, make sure you are careful when you actually pivot the light this way here, because you don't want the yoke to actually touch this beautiful finish here of the ballast, because you will definitely going to scratch this light, unless you don't care. I do. So for those of you who want to actually have the equipment looking brand new forever, you know. I don't want you to actually unbox this thing, set it up here. In the first 10 seconds, you actually put a big scratch on this ballast here. So let's actually start first with the super clamp mount that comes included with this light. As you can see, it's very similar to the Manfrotto super clamps, extremely heavy duty, and this whole thing is made of metal here. So you can actually mount this thing on several pipe thickness. It can be actually a light stand, a PVC tube, whatever it is that is a clamp. You can also mount on a table or a similar flat surface, because this thing comes with the adapter that allows you to actually mount on a flat surface or to mount on the PVC or anything that's round. And as you can see here, everything is made of metal. It comes with a ratchet knob here, so just in case this thing is in the way, you can actually easily press your thumb right here and orient this little knob in any way you position that you want, which is very handy. So as you can see, this ballast features a little handle here, but I would mount like this because I don't want the ballast to bang anywhere else, unless you actually have a proper thing to actually mount on another stand and leave the ballast hanging. But the proper way to mount here, and as you can see, the back of the ballast here, everything is made of metal, including the V-mount plate, everything is metal. One thing that I want you to pay very close attention here is when you mount this ballast, you gotta be absolutely sure that this thing is actually locked, because this particular model here on the ST300R, the mount is not as nice as the ST100R because it's a smaller mount here. So the first thing you want to do is to make sure you have this in your arm here, just in case this thing falls, your arm is going to hold the ballast. So before you actually mount this ballast here, make sure you have your finger right on the mount here on the bottom to actually help to push it up. So mounting this way. Now you put your finger here and your thumb right here, and then you jiggle a little bit. Now you hear that click, right? If you don't hear that click, this ballast is not secure. So I'm actually going to be removing the ballast right now. So put this thing back on your arm here, and then press this button. And then with your finger here, help the ballast actually come upwards. So again, there you go. You hear that click? When you hear that click, the ballast is not going anywhere. And tell your assistants or everybody that's actually operating this thing, make sure they don't press this button here to transport the stand. Make sure this thing is actually always secure this way. And again, if you're actually like me, concerned about the look of the ballast, if you don't want to scratch the ballast, make sure when you actually choose the location to actually mount the super clamp here, make sure the light stand knobs are not actually touching the bottom of the ballast. You know, as soon as you kind of lower the stand or do some adjustments here, make sure everything stays clear of its way here. As you can see, I can actually rotate the ballast this way. It's not touching the stands here. Now another beautiful thing here, as you noticed, it has V-mount capabilities, which means you're not only stuck with the studio outlets, you can actually take this anywhere in the field where there's no electricity or access to an electrical panel or outlets. But you need two V-mount batteries here. And this light, for being a 300 watt light, it will definitely going to be needing at least a 200 watt hour V-mount battery, or maybe 150 watts per side, just to make sure you actually can run this light for a good amount of time here, and enough amperage to actually keep up with a 300 watt light. So if you want to install a couple of 98 watt batteries here on each side, you're not going to be able to actually run this light for a long time because of the amperage that this thing requires, especially if you crank it up to 100%. But if you're actually filming at 20%, 35%, something like that, yes, you can actually definitely use a lesser power V-mount battery here. And on this side of the ballast, you have the other V-mount plate here, also your AC outlet, and here a self-illuminated power switch. And this is actually where the light connects. And they actually made this cable very robust. As you can see here, it's a very thick gauge cable, which there are many wires to connect to the RGB and CCT, so it requires a cable of this gauge. And to actually connect it here, there's no way to do it wrong, because they actually have the little indentations there that you actually have to turn a little bit until you find the right slot, and then you have to firmly press it in, and then you actually twist it in here. There are several locations that you might want to mount this whole ballast here, but I usually like to mount at the top of the light stand, because when you actually rise the stand, everything goes in one piece, and it also allows you to actually retain this cable nice and tight right here, just wrapped it this way. And the power cord that comes included with this light, it has plenty of length. I think it's at least 15 feet long, which you can actually easily access an outlet while you have this cable actually wrapped up this way here. And I can even actually place this cable temporarily right here against the top knob of the stand, because when I go on a location in front of a client, I think neatness and appearance is everything, right? Because it always looks good when you actually organize and your gear is not all over the place, no cables dangling around. You know, it's always nice to have a clean setup like this here. it always makes your image impressive. So GVM seems to be actually right now the only manufacturer that actually making these crazy designs here. They also released the before the ST100R and the 300R, they released the 50SM, which is one of those square panel lights in which have the same exact design, RGB on one side and the CCT on the other side. And that panel is actually 50 watts, but it's 50 watts per side. Same thing with the slides here. If this thing were a 300 watt light with the RGB and CCT sharing the same space here, you're not going to have 300 watt of output of RGB or CCT. So again, I think this design is actually very genius, and so you have 300 watts here and 300 watts speeding right there. I'm pretty sure there's some people that's gonna actually want if this light actually could shoot, you know, the RGB here and the CCT all at the same time, but what's gonna happen is you're gonna reduce to 150 watts here and 150 watts there, right? Which is actually silly, because why are we gonna be lighting two things at the same time? It's either one side or the other side. The subject is right there. And just so you know, there are no fans inside this ballast, so this whole thing is passive and silent. The openings on the top and the bottom. This is how the ballast actually cools off. And speaking of which, let's dive into those ballasts here. I'm going to show you guys everything that's inside, the menus, the shortcuts here, the settings and all, fan settings and everything. Now, since this light allows you to do both AC and DC with the V-mount batteries, it's very important to know what power consumption you're actually consuming here, especially when you're actually cranking this up all the way to 100%. But even though it says 300 watts here, it doesn't mean that when you actually crank it up to CCT or RGB, you're actually getting the whole 300 watts of power consumption out of the lights here. It will depend on the colors that you choose here, because each color they consume more or less power. And also the same thing with the CCT, when you actually are in the warmest setting, in the mid-range, or the coolest setting here. All that comes into play, how much power this thing will consume. So I'm going to show you guys here at least the basic steps of how to connect this light. If you are interested in the full tutorial of this thing here, I actually reviewed the GVM ST300R, in which you can actually fast forward to about 29 minutes and 16 seconds. Everything that you want to know extra is there, because I want to keep this video as short as possible. So right now we are inside the app here. Both lights, they're connected. And keep in mind that each MAC address represents one light, right? So I have two lights here. The GVM SD200D lighting this way here, and a GVM SD300S right here. And they all connect to this app here. They're all Bluetooth, so you can actually work with the lights together. But when I mean together, keep in mind that, you know, if you actually mix RGB lights with the CCT lights, they're not going to be compatible in working, like mimicking each other. But if you want to control each light, RGB or not, separately, that's not a problem. They're all going to be connected here, and you can actually control all these lights separate. You can actually control all these lights to mimic exactly what this light is doing, and vice versa. But I don't have any interest whatsoever in controlling this light doing the same settings, because when you actually have the main light, the fill light, hair light, everything is a different settings. Sometimes you want to throw a little 3200 Kelvin right here and 5600 this way. So I'm always going to be controlling these lights separate. So the other feature there, to me, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to be actually messing with the front lights here, which are already connected to the Bluetooth app here. So the A4, I think is that one right there. So let me hit connect here. And there you go. Yeah, that's the light. So you can actually power it off. You can actually reduce the intensity here and all. So I want this at 50%. And then switch device. Let's go with the one that says 94 here. Connect. It should be this one here. Yes, it is. So I can actually power it off. And right now it's set to 11%, which you can actually do all this here. A lot of power. So go back to 11%. And that should be it. Now the funny thing, actually connecting the lights with the app, I actually forgot, or I didn't realize that I never set this up on the app here so far until right now. So I'm actually going to be doing this together with you guys. So one step that I actually took in advance is to go to the menu settings and go to the Bluetooth and reset the Bluetooth to make sure this is going to be connecting here flawlessly. So click on add device, looking at the middle of the screen here. You see this plus here says add device, click there. And here's the light, GVM ST300R. Click on a little check mark here and then start connecting. This shouldn't take any time at all. I'm actually doing this in real time, so you guys will know how long this will take to connect the light. There you go, one device selected, done. And there it is right there on the bottom here. And then click on this. And then you actually have the CCT option here, the actual brightness and all, 2700 to 7500 degrees Kelvin, 5600 will be right here, which looks about right. And then you actually have presets here of 3200 Kelvin, 4300 and 5600. And here you have the line, exponential, logarithm, or S-curve, which is pretty convenient. I usually like the line, the regular dimming. So when I actually dim the light this way here, it is what you actually expect. So if you want the light to behave differently, all you have to do is to try the exponential. So when you actually dim the light at this proportion here, as you can see, it dims differently. So I'm at 37%, the light is still very dim. You know, it works different. So I actually like the line better, the linear, and then there you go. And it's very quick, as you can see here. So it responds very quickly. And since this ballast can actually do 1/10% here, instead of you trying to actually precisely dial with your sliding your finger here, which is difficult, as you notice, there's a plus and minus on the side of the bar here. So you can actually quickly tap in here. So 8.7, 8.8, 8.9 and such, which is pretty cool. Then you can actually turn on the light and turn it off right here on the top right. And if you want to get out of here, simply on the top left of the screen, press this arrow which says GVM ST300R. It takes you to the RGB, in which you actually have to rotate the light right there. And then you have your settings there, so you can actually have the blues and magentas and everything. Let me actually turn this down here. It's a little bit too bright. As you can see, you can very easily set your colors and decide the saturation there, which is pretty cool. And on the HSI is the same exact thing, is just a different way that they have it here. And you can actually control the brightness and all. And then the gels now, this is something that was not available in most GVM lights. So you actually have the lead gels here, which you can actually change very quickly to whatever gel that you like. And also on the bottom, adjust the intensity so it looks properly exposed, as you can see right there. Otherwise, it's gonna wash everything out. It's a 300 watt RGB light, which is pretty nice. And to switch to Roscoe, just tap on the Roscoe, and there you go. You can actually have all the gels here. Now we can actually go back in one step, and then you gotta turn this thing around again, which actually reminds of Rush, Neil Peart, you know, the drummer from Rush, because when he switched sides with the electronic and the acoustic drums, he gotta, you know, rotates around, which is pretty cool. So in front of the client, let me rotate my light here, you know. Okay, so here's the actual intensity, and we have the tungsten here, which you can actually vary from -300 Kelvin to +300 Kelvin, which is pretty cool. So the next one here, click where it says tungsten right on the top center here. So you have the AGMI 5600, which looks like this here, and the AGMI 6000, and then the studio lamps, and the sodium lamp, and the halogen, and all the settings here that you can see. Next we have the candle, which you can actually adjust from 2700 degrees Kelvin to slightly warmer or slightly cooler, and also adjust your intensity here. The next will be sunset, sunrise, and you do your adjustments here and all. The daylight, and the overcast sky, and the CFL cool white, which you can also alter from minus or +300. Then you have the effects here. Right now it says no effect. Make sure you turn it on. And then lightning, which is going to be outputting from this one here. The cool thing is when you actually press trigger or the start, that's when the effect plays. This is particularly useful for the lightning storm, because a lot of apps or lights, as soon as you select that effect, it keeps going, because on a particular movie scene, when the director says, oh, it's time for the lightning, and then you can actually stop it, and it will only happen again as soon as you hit the trigger button here, and then you stop. The light is not going to do anything until you actually come here and press the trigger. This is actually very important. I've never seen this feature on any light so far of this price, or the brands such as GVM, Godox, you know, something like that. I actually reviewed a super high-end light, the Rotolight Titan X2. I don't think that light actually has this option either. So when you actually switch the lightning there, this thing is going to be continuously playing the lightning. There's no way to stop it. So this one here, big kudos to GVM, because you can actually stop the effect anytime that you want. Then I'm going to go very quickly here with the effects, because my algorithm says you guys don't really have a lot of interest here. I'm just going to go real quick here. And then show this. This is the CCT loop, and then you have the candle here. You gotta press start, and then adjust to the color temperature that you like. If you want a very cool candle at 7500 degrees Kelvin, you have it. but I usually want to, you can also adjust the rate as well. This is why I'm showing the app here real quick, because you can actually tune in, fine tune this effects here. Then you have the bad bulb here, and the same thing, you can actually adjust the rates and everything. And then the TV, same exact thing, you can actually vary the color temperature. Don't forget to press play. Then next effect will be the paparazzi, which is the same old thing that we see. Don't forget to hit start, right? You can also again have your ratings here from the slowest, rate 1, to the fastest, which is rate 10. Go back and you have the explosion, same exact thing here. It looks like this. You can adjust the brightness and all. Then you have the pulsing here. This one I actually wished it was from the RGB side, so you can actually dial that red color to be like breathing, that red, which would be a lot useful than the CCT on pulsing mode. But here's what the pulsing mode looks like. And at the slowest rate, it will pulse like this. You can also change the color temperature and all, or you can actually go very fast, right? And the next one will be the disco. Press play here, and you have to actually turn the light that way, and then it looks like that. Adjust your intensity here so you properly expose. You have the saturation and all. You can even control the saturation on the thing here, and the rate, of course. And then the next one will be a cop car. And then you can also tweak the rate. So if you want to fast like this, all the way to something in the middle here, and all the way to the slowest, which is pretty nice. Most GVM lights, you cannot change the rate of the police light. So I usually like something like this look here on the 8 or 9 maybe. Especially when there's like a bunch of police cars, you can actually simulate there's like a bunch of cars there. And the next one will be the party, which is pretty much the same thing, similar effects. And the hue loop, I think, is actually very useful as well, especially at a rate of 1, full saturation. You can actually make it go very slow. And by the way GVM makes these lights right now, as you can see, everything is very smooth. There's no jumps of any kind. Everything is very round, as you can see there. The colors, they switch very smoothly, which is a big plus. And that's pretty much it for the app here. Again, if you want to see more, just go to my review here with the GVM ST300R. You have the whole tutorial to watch there. Now, before I connect the V-mount battery here with the multimeter, I want to see if they're coming through this ballast, which there is almost none here, which means it's safe for you to actually install your V-mount batteries. At the same time, you have the AC plugged in, because some lights that I've seen, some undesired current is actually flowing on this V-mount terminals here. Now, GVM makes these two types of V-mount batteries here. This one is the BV160, which is a 160 watt hour, which means how long the light can actually run each hour. And this one here is the BV95. Either one will run just fine as long as you don't crank this up to 100% for being a 95 watt hour battery against a 300 watt light. Now, I have other batteries here, about 200 watts per battery, which I much rather use on this light. Again, for being a 300 watt light, I think you're gonna have a lot more runtime with the bigger battery with this light. But again, if you want to use a small battery like this, you can, but don't expect the light to be running for 45 minutes, an hour and a half, because that's not gonna happen. But the light will definitely work. Now, before you install the V-mount batteries here, the first thing you want to do is to make sure that you actually power it off here. You have a little fan thing going on there. It powers off, and then you actually come here and physically power it off from the switch. Then you actually install the V-mount battery, and you want to make sure that you hear that click. Not yet. There you go. Now it clicked. No, it's not going anywhere. And then you can actually disconnect the AC. I would definitely recommend that. And then you actually power the light on with the switch here. And then you press on the power button here, the start button, and there you go. The light is on. Now, since I'm running with the V-mount batteries here, the one thing that I'm sure you guys are curious to see, will this light have the same amount of brightness, whether you are connecting via AC through the outlet or also through the V-mount batteries here. So I'm gonna show you guys next. So right now I have the light meter here running at ISO 800, which is the default sensor for most cameras today, and it's at 30 frames per second. And I'm actually gonna be utilizing this light right now set to full blast 100%, running through AC, and let's see what we get here. So right now I have the light set to 100% at bare bulb, and let's see what we have here. So it's reading f16.7 at 100%, 5600 degrees Kelvin in CCT. And again, I'm running this light right now as AC. I strongly recommend that you actually power off the light completely before you actually install the V-mount batteries and unplug the AC cable here. So right now I have the light set to 100%, and the last reading, bare bulb, was 16.7. Let's see what we have here. 16.6, where was I? Somewhere here. There you go, 16.7, 16.8, which is a beautiful thing, which means this light, whether you're running through AC or V-mount, it's going to let you have the same full blast whether you're using the V-mount or the AC. Because some lights, they reduce the power to 70%, 80%, not this light here. It's going to be 100% full blast, either via V-mount batteries or the AC power. Now, our previous reading without the reflector, we had 16.7, right? So let's see what kind of brightness we're going to have with the reflector with the 300 watt light on CCT. Let's see what we're getting here. From 16.7 is going to jump to, let me make sure this thing is dead center here. And F90, that's what I'm talking about. You're getting F90 with the reflector from 16 to F90. So 16.7 is technically F22, so you're actually gaining 4 stops with the reflector with the light at 100%, 300 watts. Now right now I have the Godox QRP120, which is a humongous modifier, and this thing weighs in excess of 6 pounds. And this light here, as you can see, nothing sags, nothing droops. This teeth here, it locks us very well. And again, the way they made this teeth very fine here, so you can actually adjust the modifier slightly this way and lock it down. So first of all, you actually slightly rise the light a little bit, make sure the teeth are aligned, and then you tighten it down. It will stay, no problem. And then if you want to lower the light a little bit, again, lift it up a little bit, and then do this, and then lock down the teeth, and the modifier will stay. If you want to put it all the way up here, my boom is in the way a little bit, but you can actually definitely do that as well, and the modifier will stay. So I'm actually really happy the fact that GVM really making lights that, you know, holds pretty much any modifier. And again, the fine little tune that you can actually adjust the modifier just like, you know, half an inch up, half an inch down. So this is pretty cool. And again, the softbox is not going anywhere. So now I'm gonna go on the other side here to show you guys how beautiful this light is with these huge modifiers. Which, by the way, you can actually see also how this light is actually looking on the skin, which is pretty nice. It's set to 5600 degrees Kelvin. It looks pretty neutral, not too much green going on, not too much magenta. Every light has a little bit of magenta or a little bit of green, but this light seems to be actually well tuned. As you know, this is a dual side light here, so the RGB is one side, the CCT is in the other one, only if both the RGB and CCT were combined into a single COB chip here, and then you could actually adjust the green magenta correction because you need the RGB diodes in order to have that particular effect going on. Now I have the ST300R in front of me with a huge modifier. All the lights has been shut off, so all you see is the single light coming from this light, and this is how it looks like on the skin. It's set to 5600 degrees Kelvin, and here's the light right here. And also an opportunity to show you the fan noise that you're gonna deal with. So the light is actually behind me, behind the softbox here. So I'm gonna give you again 10 seconds of silence, and right now I'm speaking. Even if I speak like very low, it shouldn't be a problem whatsoever, the fan noise. I don't think the microphone is going to capture because the microphone is actually pointing straight at me. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds of silence in case something gets quieter. And then this is what the noise you're going to have with this light, with the softbox properly placed on an interview set. And keep in mind, this light is actually still very close to me. I can actually touch the softbox very easily. So most likely we're going to be having the softbox at least another 4 feet away. So as far as fan noise goes, I'll give you the test right now. So when the talent is actually speaking very softly, you know, you should be okay with as far as fan noise because I don't think the microphone is going to be capturing much of it. So, you know. But this is my test here, how the light looks like on the face, on the skin, plus show you guys what the fan is doing with the interview set with the light at this distance. And here's the front of the ballast, and there's nothing under the ballast. So everything that should be connected is on this side that I just showed you here. And the other side, all you'll see is another V-mount plate. And to power on the light, you're gonna flip the switch first, and the ballast is not powered on yet. You're gonna hear very slight click, which means current is flowing here. And then you wanna press and hold this button, and then you have the firmware, which is version 1.1. So right now we are on CCT mode and it's at 0%, and as you can see, you can go by 0.1% increments all the way to 100% very quickly, and very quickly down to 0%. There you go, 3 turns, you go to the whole thing, 100% to the 0%. And just so you know, the screen is not totally white. This is a semi-gray finish because this is a home theater projection screen. So just so you know, that surface is not pure white. So on CCT, this particular knob controls only the brightness. When you press it in, nothing happens. And this button here controls the actual color temperature from 2700 degrees Kelvin all the way to 7500 degrees Kelvin. And on CCT, this button does nothing. And I always forgot, but this is obviously your DMX ins and outs here. It takes a 3-pin XLR. Now when you press mode, it's going to switch to the HSI, which is right here. So I have to actually turn the light the other way. Let's set a decent intensity right here. And this knob here adjusts your hue. And as you change the hue, you'll see how stepless and how smooth that is. There's no jumping, there's nothing abruptive here, depending how slow you turn this knob, right? So everything is extremely smooth. Every single color here. So I'm gonna go to the whole 360 here, which doesn't take a long time. So you guys can see the richness of the colors here. And go back to 0. And this button here controls the saturation. Right now is at 100%. And then as you actually lower down the percentage, you see you still have a great deal of colors here, because both lights from GVM, as soon as you pass 80%, you're pretty much to the white thing. So this one here still offers you a great range and very well controlled saturation. So at 60% you have the pink, and 50% you still have some color here. And as you go down, it goes to the white, which is not really the color they want to do interviews with. So the white here is just, you know, always a little wacky, because this is not an RGB WW light, because again, the CCT is separate from the RGB diodes on the, it's 2 different chips. And as you can see, you can go back to the full saturation pretty much with a single turn. And when you press the mode button, you access your gels, and you press this button in, and then you can switch from Roscoe or to the Lee filters. You press it once again, that's when you actually get to select your gels right there. And then you press this button again, that's when you actually adjust your intensity right here using the same button. There you go. So let's go back to the gels. Now you can actually see better colors there. And press this button again and again. Now you turn this button, and then you have the Roscoe gels, and the same exact thing here. You can actually have your gels, and then you press this button again. Now you press the mode button again. It takes you to the RGB, which right now the intensity is at 1.3%. This is why you don't see anything here. So let's take care of the intensity first. And then you press this button once again. It drops down here, and then you can actually control the actual desired amount of red only, green only, or blue only. You can also mix and match the colors here, of course, but for that case I actually like to go to the HSI, which is a lot easier. So it's actually handy when you want just a single color, and then you can just go here. Is a lot easier. If you just want red, you know, you just go here and you only have the red. Also keep in mind the brightness here is independent whether you set your RGB or CCT or the gel effects here. So if you want the RGB at 13.9% and the CCT at 9.7%, you got it. Then you press the mode button again. This is your source matching option here, which I believe I showed you in the app. And you press this button here, that's when you access all this here. To get out of here, press this button again. Then you press the mode button again. Now you are at the white effect, which I also showed you in the app. And then you can turn it on and off here. You can actually adjust intensity and all. And then you press the mode button again. This is your color effects, which is the same thing. You can actually turn it on by switching this button here, by turning this button. And then you press this button once again. That's when you actually adjust your intensity and everything else, saturation and all. You press the mode button again. It goes back to the CCT page. Now again, I'm going to be showing you guys the brightness here. On CCT is at 19.7%, and then on RGB is at 43.6%, and then the gels here 36%, the RGB 52%, the source matching is at 7.7%. As you can see, you have a brightness setting separate for everything. And just so you know, either the RGB side or the CCT, nothing's going to happen here until you have it set to at least 1%. And there you go, this is turned on here, and then you can actually do the 0.1% or 0.1% increments. But before 1%, the light does not power on. Now in the menu here, you have the DMX settings, which I really don't do DMX, so I'm gonna skip that. But you press this button here, you have your address and everything. Press this button again, you have the mode, 8-bit or 16-bit. Then you press the back button, and then you're gonna go to the next one, which is the dimming curve, which I showed you before, the linear, the exponential, whatever, and then press the back button again. And then the next one will be the light frequency. I wouldn't mess with this to avoid any possibility of flickering, and leave it at 25 Hz. And then press the back button again. The next one will be the Bluetooth preset. So when you actually press this button here, and then you turn here, you select yes or no. So right now I'm selecting no. Actually, you know what? Let's do yes. And then the Bluetooth is being reset. Just in case you have trouble connecting the light, you're gonna use this button here. Then again, pressing the back button takes you to the next one, which is the fan mode now. Press the button here. Now you have the quiet and the high, and then the auto. So I usually leave it at quiet, which is not that quiet. Press the back button here, and display setup, press that button. Then you have the brightness from 10 all the way to nothing, 1 to 10. I like it bright, so I'm gonna leave it like this. Press this button again to switch to the other page. You have the options to have always on or after 10 seconds, and I believe those are the two settings. Yes, always on or after 10. So I'm gonna leave it always on, because I'm not in the theater. Press the back button again, takes you to the last thing, which is the factory reset. I am definitely not resetting this, but if you want to go, you press this button and then yes. In my case, I'm going to select no and then hit this button, nothing happens. Press the back button and it goes back to the main page. And that's the end of my review. I hope you enjoyed the content that I provided here. For the non-subscribers, if you like what you saw, you know what to do. And if you have any questions or any comments at all, please feel free to drop them down in the comment section, because I see and respond to everything that I see there. So once again, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.